Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of The Rundown presented by Dick's Sporting Goods. And on this edition, the Rapids fall against SKC here at home on 4th of July, but now they look ahead with a quick turn, midweek match at LAFC. That and much more on the Colorado Rapids podcast. And welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of The Rundown on the Colorado Rapids podcast presented by Dick's Sporting Goods. I am your host, Mike Ravolo, alongside my good friend and resident Rapids legend, Drew Moore. Drewby, how we doing on a lovely Monday morning?
It is.
We'll get into the result a little bit from this past weekend on what was the 4th of July match against SKC. But before we get to that, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Very simple question, but how are you?
I'm doing very well. I had a fun weekend. I had a really
Same.
fun weekend. It was 4th of July, right? Felt like it was the entire weekend, even though it was celebrated on Friday. But had a fun time here at the match. Had to work a little bit, obviously on the radio call, on the out of bounds. I was hitting the drum to try to get the fans going there pre-match. Obviously the result was disappointing, and we'll get onto that. The performance was not disappointing though. And then was at the twos match last night, and they got all 3 points. So all in all, just a fun weekend with friends and family and celebrating America's birthday.
Amen to that, man. Amen to that. Yeah, they put you to work on Saturday, or I said Saturday by force of nature, but it was a Friday match on 4th of July.
More Friday night games would be awesome, by the way.
Viernes de fútbol.
Viernes de
You
fútbol.
brought that up, dude.
Hey.
I didn't realize that was a thing, even though I was growing up in this league, but maybe we bring it back.
I would love that. How was your weekend, Mike?
Chilling, man. Yeah, we had the game on Friday, so it provided all the players and staff and everybody an opportunity to kind of have a weekend as opposed to playing on Saturday.
Yeah.
So just trying to take time, relax, because as we know, this summer is extremely busy. Extremely busy. That's putting it lightly. So just take advantage of those times, the times and the moments that you have to just relax.
Yeah.
Just time to yourself, and go out and maybe do something real quick, whatever. I just stayed home and just did chores, errands,
awesome.
like a boring old man.
I love that.
Like a viejo.
Yeah.
Like a viejo. So I think I can't.
We've
give
got
you
a
too
lot
much
more
crap
in
about it.
common. We've got a lot more in common than people might realize.
So us two viejos now, after getting past this 4th of July weekend, we're going to look ahead or recap this match between the Rapids and Sporting Kansas City that happened, like I said, on Friday, 4th of July. A tradition here, Drew, for the Colorado Rapids to have that 4th of July matchup. So second year running that Sporting Kansas City comes to town here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park to take on the Colorado Rapids. And Drew, looking at the highlights here, the Rapids off to a rough start.
Yeah, poor start. And Nico Hansen's been fantastic since stepping in goal, but this is a costly mistake early in the match. Now, there was still plenty of time to get back into it, but you just hate to see that on 4th of July with a big crowd. Poor start.
And then looking here, Drew, that the Rapids would have a chance, but then Georgie actually draws the penalty kick for the Rapids here.
Yeah, savvy play from Georgie Mihailovic, just getting in front of Pulskamp. And this was kind of the way the match went. The Rapids quickly flipped the script and had all the pressure going towards Sporting Kansas City. And the pen, it's tough. You just wonder, did he see Pulskamp leaning that way, Georgie, and not want to change directions, and just pulls it a little bit too far wide.
And then looking here, Drew, again, Georgie stepping up with a chance. And, I mean, it's just unlucky, Drew.
I mean, this was kind of the story of the night, how this doesn't go in. It takes a little bit of a deflection, but great play from Ted. And, just so unlucky and really the story of the night for the Rapids ultimately.
Plenty of momentum in the first half for the Rapids, carrying it on early on in the second half, Drew.
It was a great start to the second half. They exactly how the first half ended. You wanted to see them come out and start the second half this way. Unfortunately, Pulskamp makes a fantastic save on Hoffa's chance.
And then SKC here with one of the few chances they had throughout the match, double their lead.
And this is Tommy. This is what he's going to do, and really the only thing that Sporting we're hoping would happen, especially in the second half, and it's defended poorly, of course, by the Rapids, and tough time to go down 2 goals.
And Drewby, you've been asking the Colorado substitutes to make a difference. Enter Darren Yappy.
He was fantastic when he came on, and not just from this penalty, but just the energy that he brought, and Hoffa gives us a little bit of life towards the end there, and allowed us to have a chance to at least get a point from it, but not enough at the ultimately to get back into it.
Yeah, not enough in the end, Drew. So it's Sporting Kansas City that walks away with all 3 points from Dick's Sporting Goods Park, which I would say is a huge result for them. looking at the statistics here between the two sides, Drew. So the Rapids had 25 shots versus SKC's 5. Shots on goal 9 for the Rapids versus 2. The 2 that Sporting Kansas City scores on the night. 10 corners for the Rapids, 2 for SKC. Possession was lopsided in a very kind of strange way, I would say, Drew, because the Rapids, who typically don't have most of the ball, had most of it this time around with 61.5% of the possession, and SKC had 38.5% of the possession. So stats said one thing, scoreline said another, I think, Drew. The play said one thing, the scoreline said another thing, Drew. I feel like that's kind of how this match went, but I would like to get your thoughts overall, what you made of this 4th of July matchup between the Colorado Rapids and Sporting Kansas City.
Oh, it's a tough one. How do we not get all 3 points from this match, much less at least a point out of it, you know? And we played extremely well for pretty much the entire match. And again, I know I said last week on the podcast, I'm not a big moral victories guy. Like, this is a game that we need to win. And I think, you know, the biggest thing is when your expected goals is so high and you attack so well and create so many chances and have good individual performances, it's bad goals that you give up that are completely avoidable, that ultimately lost us this game, because you can moan about not putting the ball in the back of the net, and especially with some of the chances that we had, except for the one PK late from Hoffa. And maybe it's just the former defender in me, but it's the goals that you give up that really kind of ruin the night, you know? And so, you know, I think this is a match where heads were down afterwards, and on the 4th of July, you know, big crowd, you always want to put in a good performance, and you did, but ultimately you're going to be judged by, did you get all 3 points on the night? And no, you didn't. You got 0, you know? And so it really, really stings, because the performance on the whole was really, really good, but you have to defend better in moments, and you have to make better choices in moments. And against a team like Sporting Kansas City, they'll leave feeling like they did what they had to do, and credit to them, they did. But man, this is one of those where, very different from New England, where you felt like you should have left with 3 points. This was very much self-inflicted, and 3 points was there for the taking, and we didn't take them.
I'm with you, Drew, in terms of that sentiment of, like, I'm not just like trying to find the wins, or, you know, just look at it for what it was, the performance, right? What the performance was good. But we talked about this before on the podcast throughout the season, in terms of little moments, details that make the difference. In terms of the Rapids getting all 3 points, at least coming out with a draw, or walking away with nothing at the end of the night. Here it was costly. Being here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, 4th of July, in front of a sellout crowd, 2 little mistakes. Like I mentioned, going through the stats, the 2 shots on goal that Sporting Kansas City have are the 2 goals that they get, versus the Rapids. They had 9 on goal. That's outside of the 25 shots in general that they had on the night. And looking through those highlights, we saw, be it bad luck, be it just, I mean, we didn't even show all the opportunities that the Rapids had on the night in the highlight package, because it probably would have been at least 3 to 4 minutes longer with how many chances the Rapids had on the night. So in terms of the performance, I think it was good, right? But at the same time, it's just those little details let the Rapids down in the end. And like I said, I'm not a big morale sort of like kind of vibes. It's just looking at the performance for what it was. And in the end, it was good. I think to Connor Roan and what he said post-game, in his media availability, where when I was listening to him to say that we could have easily had 8 or 9 goals, I took it a little bit as like, you know, one of those kind of hyperbolic, kind of offhand comments or whatever. No, if you watch the match and watch it back fully, it literally could have been 8 or 9 goals like that, and that's not being facetious or hyperbolic with it. Literally could have been 8 or 9 goals with the amount of chances, at least, I would say. But it got away from the Rapids, Drew.
And I think it's fair to say, and this is not, I don't think this is a hot take, if you put in performances like that for the rest of the season, you're going to make the playoffs, because those goals are going to start going in, right? The defending, the little details, right? The mistakes that were made, those need to be fixed, obviously. But if you perform like that, if you attack like that, if you create chances like that, you're going to win more games than you lose, I feel like. And maybe that is the moral victory part of this, but you still should have won this match. But the schedule coming up is daunting in the next month, right? And so if you turn in performances like that, and there were some good individual performances, which we're going to get to right now, but if you perform like that in the coming weeks, I think you're going to come out on the good side of matches more often than not.
Yeah, it felt, because with pairing the performance with kind of how things went, it felt a little bit like an anomaly. That the fact that that the Rapids could not get all 3 points felt a little bit like incredibly unlucky. Like I would say the epitome of that was that late first half chance that Georgie has where it goes off the post and literally goes right across the line as supposed to go inside the goal, right? That felt like it was kind of what the night, it encapsulated the night in the end, Drew. So like the Rapids are getting in very good and dangerous positions. I mean, the statistics speak for themselves in terms of their expected goals rate. Was that 4.6?
4.6, man.
Right. Now, so just for a little context, with the 2 PKs that the Rapids did get, each of those PKs adds 0.79 to that expected goals rate. So that does help. But even outside of that, that's still a pretty good goals.
Still over 3 expected goals, taking away the penalties, which they earned, right?
Yes.
Like if you take the penalties away, but you don't take the penalties away because they earn those penalties.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, yes, for me at least, it is frustrating to not walk away with all 3 points. Be it the players and the coaching staff, they would be the first to tell you that they're very frustrated considering the performance, the amount of chances that they created, and not that SKC was hanging out for dear life, but they weren't far off from that. Like if you're Carries of Adnan in Sporting Kansas City, you're ecstatic that you walk away with all 3 points from here, and kind of wondering how a little bit that you did, but they got the job done.
You're running out of here.
With the few chances they had, they took advantage of those opportunities, and they're walking away with 3 points at the end of the night. And speaking of SKC, they had 15 fouls and 4 yellow cards on the night, so they kind of. It feels like doing what other teams did coming into Dick's Sporting Goods Park to try to take advantage of the Rapids, doing what they had to do. Yeah. Doesn't mean it's going to be pretty, but it felt like they did what they had to do to walk away with all 3 points against the Rapids at their house. Of note, Drew, a couple guys that we wanted to mention here. So Cole Bassett, he returned after dealing with this ankle injury, and he had mentioned about a couple weeks ago or so in post-game media availability when he had come back at that point as well, saying that like it was kind of emotional for him trying to deal with that injury and feeling like he is not on the pitch trying to be as influential, as impactful as he feels he can be for the group. So it was just nice to see him back in the fold again, sure. and hopefully kind of knock on wood that there isn't anything further with that injury or any other injury with Cole, for anyone for that matter, quite frankly, Drew. But one other guy I really wanted to touch base on and talk about is Calvin Harris. So this is somebody that I'd mentioned going into the New England game after the midweek LA match that we had last week, 2 weeks ago, has been on one right now. He's been on a tear, Drew. Calvin, for me, I think maybe the best performance on the night out of everybody on the Rapids. That's saying a lot considering the overall performance from the group.
That's fair.
He drew 2 yellow cards from Sporting Kansas City. What was it? It was Joaquin Rodriguez who got a yellow at some point in a potential transition moment in the first half, gets subbed off at halftime for Carries of Adnan and his coaching staff making that decision. Tim Leibold, their left back, he early on in the second half, he gets warned for multiple fouls on Calvin. A few minutes later, gets a yellow card. Within 10 minutes, he's subbed off. That for me showed that the coaching staff from Sporting Kansas City side, they had to honor and respect the danger that Calvin Harris was creating for them on the Rapids right-hand side, the Sporting Kansas City left-hand side, with the substitutions that they had to make, with the slight formational change I think they had to make along the way as well. And you look at Calvin's performance overall with like how north-south he was, right, with how much of a goal threat he was. And if it wasn't that goal, the 1v1 chances or situations that he found himself in and putting defenders on their heels, Calvin's been on one, man. Like, and credit to him for like the amount of work and discipline he showed to be able to be in this position to begin with.
Yeah, I think Calvin's a great example of, you would love all of your players that maybe aren't starting games to be able to go and perform in training, right? Because he was on one for 3 or 4 weeks in training, and it was like there were a couple games where it seemed like maybe it was time for him to start, and for whatever reason, the decision was for him to come off the bench. And then when he was coming off the bench, he was impacting games positively, right? And now he gets a string of 3 straight starts, has a couple goals, has some assists, chance creation, just the way he's maximizing what he can do, and that's he's pacey, he's powerful, he's direct, he's confident taking players on 1v1, he's putting shots at goal, and it's just I'm super excited and happy for him because this is the Calvin Harris that we all want to see, right? And it's been a lot of fun to watch, but it's also this idea that just because you're not starting games doesn't mean you can't go and win starting spots in training and with your substitute appearances, and then take that opportunity when you do have it to start games and make it yours. And he is huge right now for the Rapids because he's requiring a lot of attention from the opposition, and that is maybe freeing up a little bit more time for Djordje Mihailovic, for Rafa Navajo, for Ted Kudi-Pietro, among others. Not just is he getting a lot of joy, but it's allowing maybe some of his teammates to get just a little bit more time and space. And hopefully he continues this run of form because he is requiring a lot of attention from the opposition. And he's been awesome these last 3 games. His three games he started this year.
He's been fantastic, Drew. Like if he's not scoring like he did against LA, hits the post like he did against LA and nearly gets doubles his count on that night, he's just dangerous.
Yeah,
he's
a threat.
I mean, like
he's
I said, they had to replace Joaquin Fernandez and Tim Leibold. In the space of 10-15 minutes from halftime to kind of deal with that, so that they didn't have guys that get a second yellow or just are unable to defend Calvin Harris, right? Yeah. Which I think, in the end, regardless of what they did, showed that they could not handle Calvin Harris when he's in his best in his best form right now, and that's credit to Calvin again. Like this is something I actually wanted to ask you about, Drew, because in terms of Calvin working his way into the starting lineup, considering where he was this season and not really starting or even getting too many minutes off the bench, right? So just for context, Calvin on the season has 500 for MLS, at least MLS minutes,
right?
520 MLS minutes on the season so far for 2025. 245 of those are from the 3 starts that he's gotten in these past 3 games versus LA here, at New England, and then this past match against Sporting Kansas City. So that's nearly half of his minutes that come from the past 3 starts that he's gotten. So he's on the bench, biding his time, putting in the work at training, doing what he can to earn his opportunity to start. And once he does, he takes full advantage of it, Drew. So how much credit does Calvin deserve for being able to bide his time, put his head down, put in the work, and kind of not say woe is me, and just fight for his opportunity, and which he is now taking advantage of?
He deserves a lot of credit. It's not easy to step into training, first training day of the week, and think I need to go for these 4 days and do as much as I can to try to earn a starting spot, right? That becomes a mental grind and a physical battle, right? Like, especially when it starts to get into summer and it starts to get hot, and it's you've played a lot, the team has played a lot of games, and so is there a group that's kind of like a first choice? Well, sometimes there is, but there's these players that are always being watched and evaluated, like the whole squad certainly is, but there are certain times and certain moments where battles are being won during the training week, and whether you realize that or not, maybe I didn't as a player, but now being on the other side of it, I do realize we're watching this battle this week. We're watching this battle in the inner squad this Wednesday, whenever it is. And Calvin for about a month now has been very sharp and very good in training, and he deserves a lot of credit for he got himself ready, right? You stay ready so you don't have to get ready, right? And he got himself ready in training and in his substitute appearances, and now he's kind of reaping the benefits of that from the starting 11.
Yeah. Credit to Cal, man. And I think he can serve as a reference point for anybody else who might be on the bench and is thinking, hey, I should be out there.
Yeah,
right? Like, listen, what player isn't going to think I should be out there playing 90 minutes and doing that every week throughout the season? I can't imagine, right? Like, I mean, you would know, Drew. I'm sure you've had those moments where you're sitting there like, I should be out there instead of whoever's there in my position, right? And you do everything that you can and you're in your power and your ability to show yourself out of training or in those starts. And Calvin's done it, man. Like, especially when you come from a position, like we said, where he was on the bench, not really even getting that many minutes off the bench, and then he works his way into the starting lineup and being incredibly effective and taking advantage of those opportunities when they came around. So
I still have those moments, even at 41 years old. I'm like, I should be out there. I could do better than that.
That's a standard tie.
I can't. I know I can't.
Standard tie, but then being realistic with what you got in front of you. But hey, listen, you've been out of the game, 3 years now? This is your 3rd season since you retired? So what was it? When we rolled the tape on some of the footage that we got of you at open training like a few weeks ago.
My knees still hurt from that. So.
We're actually gonna toss Drew in an ice bath in a bit here, because I think he's clearly still feeling it from what that was like almost a month ago at this point, open training then. Good. Is there anything else, Drew, that you wanted to touch base on with that match? Again, like it wasn't ideal for the Rapids in terms of not walking away with all 3 points at home on 4th of July, a Rapids tradition here to have a game on that night. But is there anything else that you wanted to take away from that match before we move on?
Just like I said earlier, that was a good performance overall, and we talk about little details and little moments that aren't little details. They're not little moments. They're all big, and if we fix some of those mistakes similar to the New England match, then again we're going to win more matches than not, and I think that needs to be the takeaway, the mentality moving forward. Hey, we're a pretty good team, and we showed that on Friday night on the 4th of July. But there's little things we can do to become an even better team. And with this stretch of games we've got coming up, I think you fix those and you go forward with that mentality, you're going to give yourself a good shot to move up the table here going through July.
For sure. Listen, I mean, just considering where this group stands in terms of standings in the Western Conference, like it doesn't really – I'm not too bothered by it, honestly, because, again, you look at a performance like Friday where, yes, you don't walk away with all 3 points, but as Ronan said, like if you put yourself in a position like that where you're putting in performances like that, maybe 8 or 9 goals is a reality that you're looking at, right? And like I said, it sounds hyperbolic, but if you look at the match, the Rapids very easily could have had that many. If they're taking advantage of the opportunities, at least half of that, right?
For sure.
I'm not terribly worried, despite the kind of bitter feeling in the mouth that's kind of left over from that result.
Yep.
The performance really, I think, adds a little kind of optimism looking forward, especially with the stretch of matches that we do have coming up here for the Rapids, Drew.
Yeah.
And before we get into upcoming matches and other things that we got going on for the Rapids, with the Rapids app, as of course we've promoted multiple times here on the podcast, just actually, if you turn on your push notifications on the Rapids app, you'll actually know when a new podcast episode comes out, especially with summer being kind of strange, weird scheduling and all that. You'll know when we have a midweek episode, which will be the case this week at some point, since we still have to look ahead to Vancouver on the weekend here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. That will be for that next episode. But you turn on push notifications on the Rapids app, you're always in the know, particularly when a new podcast episode comes out.
And you'll want to watch it immediately.
And if it's free, which it is,
it's for me and you.
For everybody.
And you.
And for everybody.
And Rich.
Why not? And it's for everybody. So make sure you download the Rapids app so that you're in the know with anything and everything to do with the Colorado Rapids. Like we said, if it's free, it's for me.
That's right.
So download the Rapids app today for free, and you'll be always in the know that anything to do with the Rapids. Moving on from that, Drew, let's get into Around MLS.
Straight into it.
First game I wanted to touch base on here on Around MLS is the LA Galaxy versus Vancouver Galaxy.
Whoa!
They won. They
won by a lot.
Decent amount. 3-0 win for the Galaxy at home versus the Vancouver Whitecaps, who between injuries and missing guys who are at Gold Cup just recently, which just wrapped up yesterday, just last night. There was a brace for Joseph Paintsel there, so he's kind of slowly racking up his goal-scoring count for the 2025 season. The Whitecaps, like I mentioned, they were missing a couple guys due to Gold Cup, which just wrapped up last night. So they'll be getting Brian White and Sebastian Berhalter back. I would say two of the more pivotal pieces, important pieces in that group. So what did you take away from that match, Drew?
Yeah, credit to Galaxy. Maybe they're coming out party. Will this jumpstart? They've been okay. I think 2 wins in their last 5 games, maybe a loss and 2 draws in there, or 2 losses and a draw. But regardless, they're starting to, kind of turn things around. I think it's probably still too late in terms of playoffs, but you never know what could happen, especially if Puig gets healthy and comes back any type of form that he was in at the end of last season. But for the Whitecaps, it's are they? It's tough, man, because they've played a lot of games and now they're missing some players. They've got a couple injuries. It's been a long season for them already. They obviously beat LAFC in their previous match, and so there's still a lot of good in that squad, and they'll just continue to be an interesting team to watch moving forward. And we've got them here in less than a week after the LAFC match. So getting Berhalter and Brian White back will certainly boost them, I would think. But yeah, an interesting scoreline there.
Yeah, Galaxy will take what they can get at this point, considering where they were basically the first half of the season. Yeah. Moving on, Drew, to San Diego, Houston. I mean, wowzers. Talk about a wild one. This ended up being Houston Dynamo walking away with all 3 points at San Diego. Not many teams can say that as of this 2025 season. San Diego's first season in MLS. It was a 4-3 win for Houston. What a result for them. Ezequiel Ponce scored an 87th minute PK, but that wasn't the end of it. He scored at 90 plus 10.
There was still a lot of time.
17.
Are we sure this game's gone final at this point?
We'll have to double check and see if they're still
don't
going.
know.
They might actually still be going in San Diego at this point, Drew. But Ezequiel Ponce, a couple goals. That's what you want from your DP forward to get results like this, especially in tough places to play against tough teams to play.
What a roller coaster of a game. Houston go behind twice, San Diego go in front twice. Houston are a team that, they got off to a little bit of a poor start. And when we went there, you and I both said on this podcast after the match, like, we feel like Houston's going to be a good team. They've got good players if they can kind of put it all together. And I believe they're above the playoff line now because of this result. And this is a huge result. Like, San Diego hadn't dropped points, I don't think, from a position where they were in the lead in a match, and they were in the lead twice in this match. And Houston comes back and, scored some nice goals and showed a lot of grit and character. They deserve a lot of credit. That's not an easy place to go and get anything from the match. But 17 minutes of added time at the end of the second half. That's pretty impressive, and Houston deserve a lot of credit for where they are right now. And it seems like they've got a little bit of momentum.
Yeah. They have quality on that side, Drew. We talked about that before we went to to Houston in that matchup about a couple months ago at this point.
Yeah.
You look at Jack McGlynn, who'll be back with them now. Like Ezequiel Ponce, Franco Escobar. There's a list
Linger,
of guys.
the new DP
who ended up getting that late tying goal against the Rapids when they went there to play the Dino. There is talent on that squad. It's a matter of it all kind of coming together and figuring, which I think they're slowly doing. But it looks like they're a slow upward trajectory right now under Ben Olsen, who you're always gonna expect grit, heart, character from a Ben Olsen side. That's for sure. Finally, Drew, the Gold Cup final took place last night between the U.S. men's national team and Mexico, the U.S.'s bitter CONCACAF rivals. Ended up being a 2-1 win on the night for Mexico, so they are the 2025 Gold Cup champions. What did you make of that final between the two sides, Drew?
I think the better team won the final. Certainly, Mexico, they had their top end talent on the squad for this tournament. But I think there were moments where the U.S. showed maybe a little bit of naivety, not able to get a stranglehold on the game when they had opportunities to. Obviously, getting an early goal was nice, was big, but ultimately Mexico, I think, were the better side on the night and probably deserved the victory. I think overall this tournament, though, I'm fairly pleased with what I saw from a lot of individuals in the and really the group that was there for the U.S. I know anytime you lose to your bitter rivals in the Gold Cup final, people are going to lose their minds, and we're terrible, and the coach should be fired, and all the players should be fired. But I feel like there were a lot of good individual performances. I thought Diego Luna was very good in this tournament. I thought Malik Tillman very good in this tournament. I thought Freeze was very good, and really the group's character and resolve and mentality was tested, and I thought they passed a lot of those tests. And you win 5 games in a row, to get to the final. That's pretty impressive. And for the group that was there, that was willing to put it all out there and to suffer and to represent the country, I was overall very, very pleased. Disappointed, obviously, with the result last night. But overall, very pleased.
I'm with you, Drew. Yeah, hopefully the performances between quality on the ball, but then also the grit and character and suffering that this group showed last night against Mexico, although it wasn't ideal. I think that's a positive takeaway from this specific group of the U.S. men's national team, and hopefully forces your A-listers, if you will, right? Some of the guys that typically would be called in for a tournament like this that weren't there, kind of check behind their shoulders and be like, oh, this guy's going to keep me honest, and I have to earn my position. It's not just kind of waltzing in and expecting that I'm going to walk in and show up for the national team whenever I feel like it. And now this is the last official competition before we have the World Cup in less than a year's time, which is crazy to say, Drew. Here, stateside, Canada, Mexico. So those friendlies that are coming up, to say they're important is an understatement, I would say, in terms of trying to figure out what your best. If you're Mauricio Pochettino and the coaching staff, trying to figure out what your best group is in less than a year's time.
Chris Richards and Patrick Agiman also very very good performances
Yeah.
as well. I left them out, but some good individual performances as well. But I thought, the group showed a lot of grit, and it's tournament, big tournaments like that, CONCACAF competition. Man, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And while we didn't win, and again, ultimately that's what you get judged on. I can't be too unhappy with overall what I saw.
Yep, I agree. Well, all right, that'll do it for Around MLS. So with that, let's move on.
Let's move on.
Let's move on into this upcoming match. A
Got
quick
more
turn, Drew.
Rapid stuff.
A very quick turn. Like we said, it's summer, busy season.
It is, man.
for not
It
just the
is.
Rapids, but for anybody. But with the summer comes your midweek matches. So one of these midweek matches is going to be LAFC versus the Colorado Rapids. This match is going to be happening on Wednesday, July 9th, 8:30 p.m. 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time kickoff at BMO Stadium in LA. And unless you plan to travel to LA to catch your Burgundy boys out there, you can watch the match on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Looking at LAFC, their last 3 results, Drew, at least in terms of MLS play. 2-2 draw at Montreal, 3-1 win versus Sporting Kansas City, and then it was last Sunday, I believe, not yesterday, but the one before, 1-0 loss versus Vancouver, and that was their first MLS match since they wrapped up their time with the Club World Cup, where they unfortunately they were not able to make it out of the group stage in that tournament. They were meant to play this past Saturday, the match was in Austin against Austin FC that they were supposed to play this past weekend. But they did not play that match, unfortunately, because of the flooding that's been taking place out in Texas, which is extremely unfortunate just because of the news we've been getting out of there. So our thoughts, of course, go out to the family, friends, and loved ones of those who are affected by that, because that's never a good situation, and it is just extremely unfortunate, Drew. So LAFC did not play this past weekend at Austin as a result of what's been going on in Texas. In terms of comparing the two sides, Drew, LAFC currently with their record is 7-5-5. The Rapids are 7-9-5. Points, LAFC have 26, and the Rapids have. Little misnomer there. Either way, we'll move on from that. So in terms of goals, I had a typo on my part. No worries. So that's all good.
We're both on 26 points.
We're both on 26 points. Yeah, that was my fault. And then in terms of goals, Drew, LAFC have 30 so far. Colorado have 24. Goals against, LAFC have 24 and Colorado have 30 goals against. Finally, for average possession, LAFC have 53.9%. Colorado have 44.6%. That went up a little bit after the possession numbers from Friday night against Sporting Kansas City. So, Drew, like we mentioned, this is an LAFC side right now that is, they had their couple stints in international competitions between CCC, in which we saw them to start off our season, them to start off their season. They were recently in the Club World Cup. Awesome, really cool opportunity considering how that tournament has played out, and when nobody knew how that was going to play out. But they crashed out after 3 matches and not getting the results they needed in the group stage. In terms of the games that they played, so they've played 17 MLS matches. Whereas the Rapids have played 21. So obviously, like we mentioned, they've been playing Club World Cup, CCC. That has affected the number of MLS matches they played. However, they've played 28 total matches this year in all competitions. So that, like we mentioned, it's that CCC and Club World Cup that has racked up the amount of games they played this season, which is 28 already at this point.
Already, yeah.
That's a lot. So that's maybe something the Rapids would hope to take advantage of in terms of maybe them being a little worn out, but you never know because LAFC is a quality side, as we all know. Looking at a few guys, to make note of, Drew. So Hugo Lloris, he's been out with an arm injury. He would have not been available against this Austin FC match that was supposed to take place this past weekend, but did not. So we will see what Hugo Lloris' status is going into Wednesday versus the Rapids when they're in town in LA. Olivier Giroud, I think it's fair to say that it wasn't like the best of time. It was an underwhelming kind of stint here in MLS, but that's not to say he's not a bad player. It just didn't work out. That is what it is, because I think Giroud's career speaks for itself. He left LAFC. They agreed to part ways, and he's now back home in France playing for Lille. And then finally, Denis Bouanga. I mean, this is the guy for LAFC, right? 8 goals, 5 assists on the season in MLS so far, Drew. And he's with Giroud out, I think he is the main guy for LAFC, as if he wasn't already beforehand. As he's a known quantity in this league. So with LAFC, Drew, what can you come to expect of an LAFC side right now that has played as many matches as they have this season so far? and have a quick turn this week. Well, the Rapids have a quick turn this week, and they need to travel to what has been a difficult place for them to go to. That is BMO Stadium in LA.
I mean, for me, LAFC are still, one of the teams in this league that could beat anybody 4-0, and it wouldn't surprise you, And I know their form has been a little up and down. They've played a lot of games this season so far, but they still have, game changers at almost every single position, right? And obviously Denis Bouanga being one of those. Nathan Ordaz is a player that I've talked about a couple of times on this podcast that I really like, a young player that maybe now with Olivier Giroud out of the picture, because that's a player that you want to try to feed and you want to try to get involved. And maybe with him out, some of these other players can step up. David Martinez, still a good young player. Tillman, Mark Delgado coming over from the Galaxy. And defensively, there's still, a team that has very, very good defenders in Aaron Long and Eddie Segura. When Lloris is in goal, still one of the top goalkeepers in the league. And so regardless of their record, regardless of how many games they've played this year, especially at BMO Stadium, they're still a team that can beat anybody on any given day. And it's going to be it's been a tough place for the Rapids, ever since they've been in MLS, and Wednesday night's going to be a tough battle.
Very much will be. LFC is a quality side, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think this season they kind of slowed down a little bit from the typical clip that they find themselves at on any given season. Quite frankly, quality side, good at home. The 32-52 is going to be behind them for sure. That's a guarantee. But even with their kind of interesting, not up to pace form that they typically expect out of themselves right now, considering all the competitions they've been playing in, the exhaustion that some of the players and even staff are going to feel from that, this is still a quality side, man. So going into this match, Drew, specifically with LAFC, I have a pretty good idea of probably who you're going to say here, but who would be your player to watch on the LAFC side that the Rapids have to keep tabs on?
It's Denis Bouanga. And he is still, and again, maybe with Giroud out of the picture, he really becomes the focal point of their attack, and he is still his pace, his power, his directness, just his confidence going forward with the ball at his feet is special. He's one of the more special players attacking wise in the entire league. And if you give him an inch, he's going to take a mile, And so you have to really try to slow him down. You have to, in particular, your rest defense. You have to know where he is at all times because he's going to drift. He's going to take up spaces where when you're in possession, if you have poor losses in possession, or even not, if they take a quick, set piece, a quick goal kick, whatever, they're looking to spring their attack through Denis Bouanga on that left side, cutting in on his right foot. And so for me, he's the player that if you take him and limit a lot of what he can do, make him play at 80%, 70%, 60% of his capacity, then you give yourself a real good opportunity to take all 3 points in LA. That being said, there's still, I just mentioned a bunch of still really good players around him. And, when Ordaz is on the field, when Abobasi is on the field, when David Martinez is on the field, they've brought over this Dil Rosen guy from Club America. There's still game changers on the field, but Bouanga for me is the one that you have to keep an eye on. And I think, Mike, you're thinking of a similar player for the Rapids, at least positionally and maybe tactically, that you want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, so the LAFC has Denis Bouanga, their winger, and Denis Bouanga, who, again, he's a known quantity in this league, not just in the Western Conference. Everybody knows what Denis Bouanga is capable of. But the Rapids right now have a proper threat on the wing themselves in Calvin Harris.
Absolutely.
This is somebody I'd highlighted recently going into the New England game after the Galaxy game. So that's after Calvin's first start of the season. And I said, he's on a tear. He's on one right now, and he's followed through ever since now. It's a couple weeks now at this point that Calvin is really in form, is a threat, is a nuisance for the other team. We saw it in this past match, despite the result against Sporting Kansas City. Like I said, the Sporting Kansas City coaching staff being forced to make a couple changes because of Calvin Harris and the danger he was posing for them. With his vertical threat, with the 1v1 situations that he finds himself in, and putting defenders on their heels, creating opportunities, be it for himself or for his teammates. This is a guy right now that is providing ample opportunity, like I said, for himself and for his teammates to be more dangerous, to be more goal dangerous, and creating all sorts of opportunities for the team to be able to score, if not be in good goal scoring positions. This past Friday, 4th of July, was a perfect show of that with everything that he was doing, the problems he was causing for the opposing team. So Calvin Harris, I think, is once again, he's going to be, I think, very instrumental for the Rapids to go to a side that's very difficult to play in, and particularly for the Rapids, it's been difficult for them to play in, to just like put respect on the name. Like LAFC is going to be forced to have to keep tabs on Calvin Harris, and the way that the Rapids need to shut down Denis Bouanga, I think LAFC is going to have to do the same with Calvin Harris to find some sort of solace and comfort and try to play the way that they want to play. Because if not, I mean, Calvin Harris is going to pose all sorts of problems for LAFC if they do not keep tabs on him.
And what a great opportunity for Calvin. And again, I always say this, we don't know who's starting in this match, but what a great opportunity to back up your 3 really good performances so far, to now go to LAFC, a place where the Rapids have really struggled, and where you've got the winger on your side for LAFC, that can cause a lot of problems. You go cause a lot of problems going the other way and kind of flip the script there. And it's a great opportunity for Calvin to go and continue to just have this great run of form at a difficult place to go play. And that's going to lead me to my key to the match for the Rapids. And it's to slow this LAFC side down as much as you possibly can, because I still think LAFC are at their best when they are breaking out in the open field, right? Especially in transition, which is a tale as old as time now in world football, but certainly in Major League Soccer, and certainly with LAFC and Denis Bouanga. When they are able to go in transition at pace and have open field to run at, that's when they're at their most dangerous. So you have to slow them down. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. You can do it with finishing your attacks, first of all. No careless losses in possession, right? Attacks need to finish with shots, with goal kicks, corner kicks, goals, deep throw-ins, right? Losses in possession deep in LAFC's territory, right? That's one way to slow them down. The other way is you got to work really hard defensively to get back, to get numbers behind the ball, to be compact. Do you have to take tactical fouls? The communication obviously has to be on point, but you have to slow them down with your energy, with your defensive pressure. If you're not able to get pressure high up the field, then you have to get back behind the ball and really slow them down, because that's when they're at their best in attack, LAFC. And if you're able to do that, then you limit a lot of what they try to do in attack, and you give yourself a good opportunity to go and get all 3 points there, Mike.
Yeah, I'm going to pick off one thing that you said there, Drew, in terms of defensive shape. So as we mentioned, I mean, this is a team that thrives, LAFC. They thrive in having the open space to run into, specifically Denis Bouanga, who you mentioned that as a player to watch on LAFC's side. If he gets space, he's going to take it. He's going to go. And so whether you're Calvin Harris, whoever's on the right-hand side as your winger and obviously as your right back, like, you're going to have to try to limit that. But I think that's incumbent on the entire team. So the defensive shape of the Rapids altogether, I think, is going to be key to limit those spaces, right? Like, I would say maybe, as Chris Armas likes to say, you have to kind of enjoy suffering a little bit, which I feel like the Rapids might have to do that a little bit here at BMO Stadium. Find your moments to sit and just kind of be stubborn in front of goal a little bit to limit those spaces that LAFC likes to get in behind, particularly on the outside, particularly with Denis Bouanga on their left-hand side. You do that, I think that's where you can find LAFC try to play a game that they don't, not that they can't play it, but they don't prefer to play in terms of the possession game. Force them to have the ball, force them to find solutions without the space to run into. I feel like if you do that, you can put LAFC, have them reach a boiling point to where they start to get a little frustrated, a little impatient, a little careless with the ball. And if you're the Rapids, grab the ball and go. Especially, you find someone like Calvin Harris on the Rapids' behalf to go and transition and attack and be a threat and take advantage of what are going to be, I would say, the few opportunities the Rapids are going to get against this LAFC side that, again, all around, I think their all-around game is good, whether they want to possess the ball, especially in transition. But I think defensive shape is going to be very, very, very important for this Rapids side, and a tough place to play against a very tough team to play. And just frustrate LAFC, like force them to do something that they're not used to or prefer not to do, and you might find yourself walking away with all 3 points from BMO Stadium, as difficult as that's going to be for the Rapids.
I think you're right. I think you can frustrate them. I think they can run out of ideas at times. They can become impatient and try to force things. And that's not easy to do, obviously, to be that good, that perfect, over the course of 90 minutes defensively. But if you're able to do it for the majority of the time and then create some opportunities going back the other way, then that's a good blueprint for me to go to BMO Stadium and get 3 points, because they are a team. If you take away their transition, if you take away open space, doesn't mean they still can't hurt you, obviously, but that's what they want to do. And so you frustrate them a little bit, make them just get a little bit impatient, and then grow into the game as it goes. You give yourself a good opportunity.
Yeah. Like we said, it is a tough place to play. That's the reality of it for the Rapids historically in BMO Stadium. But listen, at some point, history's got to change, right? So at some point, you got to flip the script. And like I said, this will be a very tough place to play this upcoming weekend, especially on a quick turn coming from the match on Friday for the Rapids. So it's tall task ahead of them at LAFC against a good side. But can you find those moments? We talk about these little moments that make a difference, that can make or break, right? Whether it's in your favor or not. And it's a prime opportunity, especially against opposition like this, to say, hey, step up and say, hey, we can flip the script in terms of how things played out on 4th of July here at home. Mm-hmm. Let's do that to LAFC at their home. Let's take 3 points from what's been historically a tough place to play, and try to find some rhythm. Try to put ourselves, like, kind of course correct a little bit and find ourselves in a good spot, especially, again, what is a very, very, very busy summer season, as it typically is in MLS. So tall task ahead, but I would like to keep my hopes up with this Rapid side because of what we know they can do, Drew. Mm-hmm. We know this team has the quality and the capability of being a nuisance for any team in this league. But it comes down to little things and following through and taking advantage of opportunities when they come around. We shall see when the match comes up midweek in LA, which, again, tall task ahead, but I have hope. I have hope for this Rapid side. Yeah.
Me as well.
Anything else, Drew, before we close out? Because I think that'll do it for the show. No, pretty quick one.
Yeah,
well, it feels like a quick one at least.
I would just finish. We talked a lot of tactics and stuff. I think this is a great opportunity to just go and roll up your sleeves and show some personality and some grit and some bite against a very good side. You tactically, you were fantastic, and really performance-wise on the 4th of July. Can you go take that to LA and then roll your sleeves up and put some personality and put some heart and I'm not questioning that from this Rapid side by any means, but that's the kind of performance it's going to take to get 3 points in LA and start this very busy stretch here on a positive note. It's a great opportunity. I wish I could. I
was about to say, can we get you suited up?
Yeah, this is the time of year that, man, like games are coming at you hard and fast, and sometimes it takes that grabbing each other by the sleeves and saying let's go, let's go together. Let's be big. Let's be brave. Don't care who we're playing. Don't care where we're playing. Don't care who the supporters are behind the goal and to the sides. Whatever. Let's go and let's put in a performance. And if you put it all together, a couple things you were missing on Friday night, there's no reason to think that you can't go in and get all 3 points on Wednesday night.
Fully agree. But now all that's left is to play the match and see what plays out, right? So again, just a reminder that match between LAFC and the Colorado Rapids is happening this Wednesday, July 9th, 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time kickoff. And that's at BMO Stadium in LA. You can watch on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. That's it, Drew.
It was fun.
That's it. It was quick.
Fun. Yeah.
That was a very quick podcast. Oh, and just a quick reminder, since this is a midweek match, but we have a match on Saturday here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park versus Vancouver. We will get to that preview for the next podcast episode that's going to come out this Thursday. So
we're here for y'all.
Yeah, like it's not just if it's
not about us. It's about y'all.
The fans. It's about the viewers or the listeners. So 2 podcast episodes this week. Mm-hmm. So make sure you're tuned in for that second one when it does come out. Other than that, I think that's it, Drew. Let's put a capper on that, and we got a busy week.
We sure do.
We got to get to work.
Let's get after it.
Yeah, let's get after it. So that's gonna do it for Drew, myself, and of course Rich on the production side of things. So thanks to everybody for listening and watching to this edition of the Colorado Rapids podcast, and we will see you guys on Thursday. Quick turn. So we'll see you guys then.